"You pregnant, my daughter?" In a small village by the sea, life was peaceful and steady. The fisherman who lived here woke up early every morning to head out to sea. Among them was Thomas, a fisherman who loved the sea deeply. He had dark, messy hair, and his skin was rough from the salt and wind of the sea. He was a strong man, with muscles built from years of fishing, but he was also quiet and humble. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was soft and kind. He was content with his simple life and found peace in the rhythm of the ocean. His wife, Eliza, was different. Eliza had beautiful dark eyes and long hair that shone in the sun. She was thoughtful and practical, but also dreamed of more. She loved their little house by the sea, but sometimes she found herself thinking about bigger things. She wanted a house with a garden, a place to call their own that was not so small and crowded. While Thomas was happy with their life, Eliza sometimes felt restless. She would look at the big houses in the village and wish for more space. She also longed for a life with more comforts, things that would make their home feel less like just a small fisherman's cottage. She would often talk about this to Thomas. "I wish we could have a bigger house, maybe even a garden where we could grow flowers and vegetables," she would say. Thomas would smile softly and reply, "The sea gives us everything we need, Eliza. What more could we ask for?" But Eliza wasn't so sure. She loved Thomas, and she loved their life together. But deep inside, she wanted something more. Not far from Thomas's village was a busy town where skilled carpenters lived. Samuel was one of the best carpenters in the town. His hands were strong, shaped by years of working with wood. Samuel's workshop was large and filled with the smell of fresh-cut wood. He could make anything from furniture to boats. He was proud of his work, but sometimes it felt like too much. The work was tiring, and Samuel longed for something different. He admired the fishermen who lived by the sea, whose lives seemed simpler and quieter. Samuel had a daughter named Grace. Grace was clever and curious, always looking for ways to improve things. She would often help her father in the workshop, learning how to shape and smooth the wood. She had a sharp mind and was good with tools. But even though she loved being with her father, Grace often wondered if there was more to life. She looked at the fishermen and thought about the open sea. It seemed like an exciting life, full of adventure. "I wonder what it would be like to live by the sea," Grace often thought. "It must be so peaceful, not like here, where everything is so busy." Grace dreamed of traveling, of seeing the world beyond her father's workshop. But her father always told her, "The world is big, but here, in this town, we make our living. That's what matters." One day, by chance, Eliza and Grace met at the market. Eliza was there to buy some vegetables, while Grace walked beside her father, looking at the goods being sold. The two women bumped into each other, and after a quick apology, they began to talk. Eliza shared her dreams of a bigger life, while Grace spoke of her desire to leave the town and see the world. Both women longed for something different. "I sometimes wonder what it would be like to live by the sea, like you," Grace said. "I bet it's peaceful, and you must feel free." Eliza nodded. "It is peaceful," she said, "but sometimes I feel like there could be more. I want a bigger house, more space, a garden full of flowers and vegetables." Grace smiled. "I dream of seeing more of the world. I want adventure, something different from the workshop." As they spoke, an idea began to form in their minds. What if they switched places for a while? Eliza would go to the town and try working in Samuel's workshop, while Grace would live by the sea with Thomas. It seemed like a way for both women to experience what the other longed for. After some talking, both families agreed. Samuel was curious about the sea, and Thomas wanted to try working with wood. They thought the change would be good for them, even if it was just for a short time. Eliza kissed Thomas goodbye, and Grace hugged her father. Both women set off for their new lives. When Eliza arrived in the town, she was surprised by how busy it was. The streets were full of people hurrying to and fro. Samuel's workshop was large, with the sound of hammers and saws filling the air. At first, Eliza felt overwhelmed. She wasn't used to the noise and the fast pace of the work. Samuel showed her around and explained the tools and the different types of wood he used. At first, Eliza wasn't sure if she could do the work, but Samuel was patient with her. He showed her how to use the tools, and soon Eliza started to enjoy it. She learned how to carve simple shapes, how to smooth the edges of the wood, and how to measure carefully. Eliza loved the feeling of making something with her hands. She even began to think of ways to organize the shop, to make it run more smoothly. Samuel, noticing how well she worked, began to teach her more complex tasks, and Eliza grew confident in her abilities. As she worked in the shop, Eliza found herself feeling proud of what she could create. She began to think that perhaps this could be the new life she wanted, one full of purpose and achievement. Meanwhile, Grace had arrived at Thomas's house by the sea. The peacefulness of the village amazed her. The waves crashing against the shore, the salty air, and the quiet beauty of the surroundings were all so different from the busy life in the town. At first, Grace didn't know what to do. Thomas showed her how to mend the fishing nets and prepare the boat. She learned quickly, enjoying the fresh air and the calmness of the sea. However, as the days passed, Grace began to realize that the life of a fisherman was harder than it seemed. she helped Thomas with the nets and the boat, but she missed the challenge of creating things with her hands, like she had done in the workshop. The peaceful life by the sea was beautiful, but she began to long for the busy, creative energy of the workshop. Thomas noticed that Grace seemed restless. He was patient with her, teaching her more about fishing, but he also noticed that she sometimes seemed distant. He wondered if Grace missed the life she had back in the town. As the days went by, both Eliza and Grace began to settle into their new lives, but things were not as easy as they had hoped. Eliza in the carpenter's shop. At first, Eliza was amazed by how much there was to learn. Samuel's workshop was always bustling with activity. There were piles of wood everywhere, with pieces in various stages of being turned into furniture, doors, or even boats. Eliza was used to managing a quiet home by the sea, where the day's work followed a steady rhythm. But in Samuel's world, everything was fast-paced, with orders to fill, plans to finalize, and tools to keep in good condition. It was challenging for Eliza at first. She had to learn how to use sharp tools like chisels, hammers, and saws. The noise from the saws buzzing through the wood was deafening, and at times she felt overwhelmed. But as she spent more time in the workshop, she started to get the hang of it. Her hands, which were once only used for sewing or cooking, became skilled at smoothing rough edges and shaping wood. She found herself enjoying the work more than she expected. Each time Samuel asked her to help with a new task, Eliza would hesitate for a moment, but then she would dive in, eager to learn. Soon, she started designing small pieces herself: a wooden bowl, a chair with curved legs, and even a simple shelf for her room. The pride she felt in creating something with her own hands was something she had never felt before. She began to enjoy the quiet moments in the workshop when she could sit and focus on the task at hand. The wood became her canvas, and she loved the idea of bringing something beautiful into the world from just a simple piece of timber. In the evenings, when she finished her work, she would walk around the town, seeing the fruits of Samuel's labor in the houses and boats around her. Eliza felt proud to be part of this world. Grace by the sea. Grace, on the other hand, had a different experience by the sea. The peacefulness of the place was beautiful, but as days passed, she began to feel a sense of restlessness. Life by the sea was calm, but it was also very repetitive. She woke up early each morning, helped Thomas with the boat, and spent most of the day mending nets or preparing food. The work was hard, and she didn't mind it, but it wasn't what she had imagined. The sea, for all its beauty, didn't give her the challenge she had hoped for. Every day, Grace would watch the fishermen go out to sea, their boats disappearing into the horizon. She wondered what it would be like to explore far away, to see places no one had ever been before. But she was stuck, it seemed, in this small village with a small life. The quiet was soothing at times, but it was also lonely. She missed the sounds of the busy workshop in town, the rush of activity, and the feeling of creating something new. One afternoon, as she mended a net by the sea, Thomas sat next to her and asked, "What is it that you miss about the town, Grace?" She looked at him, unsure how to explain. "I miss the work," she said softly. "The carpentry shop, the tools. There was always something new to build. Here, it's the same every day. I like the sea, but I think I need something more to challenge me." Thomas understood, and he nodded thoughtfully. "I've been doing this for so long," he said. "I don't think I can imagine anything else, but I see what you mean. Sometimes a new challenge can make all the difference." Grace didn't know if she wanted to leave the sea, but she realized that she missed creating things with her hands, things that had purpose and meaning. As much as she loved the sea and the peace it brought, she felt the pull of something more. As the weeks passed, both Eliza and Grace began to change. They learned more about themselves and their strengths. Eliza, who once only dreamed of a bigger house, began to realize that the life of a carpenter brought her a deeper sense of satisfaction. She had always longed for more space, but what she found in the workshop was not space, but freedom. The freedom to create, to build, and to express herself. One day, Samuel praised her work. "Eliza, you have the talent of a true carpenter. Your designs are strong and beautiful. You have a gift," he said with a smile. Eliza blushed, feeling proud of herself. "Thank you, Samuel. I never thought I could do something like this. It feels good to make things with my hands." Grace, too, found moments of peace, even in the busy life of the village. Her love for the sea grew stronger. The days spent mending nets, preparing the boat, and helping Thomas with the fishing became more meaningful to her. She started to see the beauty in the slow, steady work. The sea became her teacher, showing her patience, and the land her anchor, keeping her grounded. But there were still moments when Grace felt she was missing something. There was still the longing for something more, something adventurous. One evening, as she sat by the shore watching the fishermen prepare for their evening catch, she turned to Thomas. "Do you ever wish for something more, Thomas?" she asked. "Something beyond the sea, beyond the fishing?" Thomas smiled gently. "I used to think the sea was all I needed, but now I think it's not just about what the sea gives. It's about what you bring to it. I've found peace here." Grace nodded, understanding that the sea was his home, just as the carpentry shop was hers. Still, she wondered if there was something she was missing, something she had yet to discover. As the months passed, both women found themselves more deeply connected to their new lives. But just as they were beginning to feel settled, a twist of fate occurred. Eliza, who had always dreamed of a more comfortable life, found herself unexpectedly pregnant. The news filled her with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She was happy, but she also felt uncertain. What would it mean for her future in the carpenter's shop? Would she be able to continue her work while raising a child? She shared the news with Samuel one evening after finishing a long day's work in the shop. Samuel smiled warmly, his eyes kind. "This is a wonderful thing, Eliza," he said. "The shop will always be here for you, and if you need time, we can work it out. Your family is your future now." Eliza felt a wave of relief at his kind words. She had worried that her pregnancy would mean the end of her dreams, but Samuel's support gave her hope that she could balance both. Meanwhile, back at the village by the sea, Grace also received surprising news. She too was expecting. At first, she wasn't sure how to feel. Her life had been about adventure, about the unknown, and the thought of being tied down by a child was both overwhelming and exciting. But as she thought about it more, she realized that this child would be her new adventure. After several months of living in their new roles, the time came for Eliza and Grace to return to their families. Both women had learned so much during their time away. Eliza had discovered a deep passion for carpentry, while Grace had grown to love the quiet life by the sea. But they had also discovered something more: the strength of their own desires, their own dreams, and their ability to adapt to the world around them. As they returned to their homes, they felt changed. Eliza, now pregnant, was more confident than ever in her work and her ability to balance family and her passion. Grace, too, felt a sense of strength she had never known before, ready to face the future, knowing that she could embrace both motherhood and her longing for adventure.